The burden of government constantly grows. Politicians spend more, regulate more. This is the road to serfdom. That's what Nobel Prize-winning economist Frederick Hayek called it, hence my chains. Of course, government expansion is done in the name of protecting us, ensuring fairness, and people like that. President Obama used the word fair 9 times in his last State of the Union address.
Our fair share of taxes. My fair share of taxes gets a fair shot, their fair share. It's fair share. It's not fair. Unfair trading practices, fair play.
Fair. Well, look, I'm for fairness, but the author of The Road to Freedom says Obama's wrong. Government doesn't create fairness, and he's Arthur Brooks, head of the American Enterprise Institute. Columnist Deroy Murdock agrees with him. But, Arthur, your point first. You say people like me who defend free markets, arguing it gives us the power to prosper, we're saying it the wrong way.
Yeah, you know, we've heard since we were, studying in school that capitalism and free markets, they give us the greatest degree of prosperity, and that all is true. But that's not the reason we should care about those things. When we hear about the president saying
prosperity's good, what matters more?
Well, what matters more is what's in our heart about why we need freedom, why we want freedom, and we can't concede this point about fairness either. The president is making a moral claim that statism is fairer than free enterprise. For the vast majority of Americans, that's factually inaccurate because we don't define fairness as redistribution. We define fairness as creating an opportunity society and rewarding merit, and only free enterprise can do that, do it best.
All right, well, back up. You used the word statism. People don't know what that means. I mean, he would say it's just fairness, redistribution, helping the poor.
Statism means that the central organizing institution around which our economy and our lives are based is the state, that they're the ones who know best. They're the ones who pass out the resources. And if you look at the data, and I know you have 1,000,000 times, you've shown it on the show a whole lot, you find that the size of government is growing and growing, and our free enterprise system as we once knew it, even as we knew it 50 years ago, doesn't really exist.
Deroy, you've written columns about this. You go further than road to serfdom. You say we're on the road to hell.
Yeah, that's right.
Seems a little much.
I think it's about right. I mean, for example, you look at just the last quarter, the first quarter of 2012, we actually produced more debt in the society than we did GDP. We're borrowing more money than we're producing, and that can't go on for very long. And I just see everywhere I look, the government expanding, becoming more intrusive, more authoritarian, and
But as the president said, it's about fairness, and people like that. It's about helping the poor.
I find it interesting when I talk to my friends on the left and they say, everyone should pay his fair share. I would say, what is that number? I mean, for example, right now, the top 1% of income tax filers earn 17% of national income and pay 37% of income tax. I say, well, if that number isn't fair, what is? And they never have an answer. It's just more.
It's hard to make a moral case for inequality. I mean, in a free society, some people will do much better than others.
That's right, and that's a great thing. What we have to worry about is mobility, not inequality. If you worry about inequality, you'll always end up bringing the top down. If you worry about mobility, then you can find ways to earn your success. You can find a society
the system's
that does
rigged.
That.
We can no longer earn success.
And we, in fact, need to worry about rooting out all the ways that the society is rigged. Corporate cronyism, of course, is the codependent wife of the growing state, and it is a threat to liberty. It's the reason that we have it is, in point of fact, because the government has grown so large. If we focused on the earned success and the dignity of individuals, which are moral concepts, we could get back on the right path.
And corporate cronyism is crony capitalism, or crapitalism, as I call it. And how does that keep people from, because the politically connected get the special favors?
Sure, absolutely. If you're too big to fail, you basically are a corporation or an individual or somebody who deserves a bailout. You have friends in Washington. You have the best lobbyists. You have the best lawyers. You have the best accountants. That shuts out everybody who's trying to start a business. Most of the jobs in this country are created by businesses that are 5 years old or younger. These are not people with Washington offices. These are not people who are well connected. And so basically, if public sector unions and large corporations that are too big to fail and people and organizations that are bailed out get all the deals, where does it leave the rest of America?
And mobility, the data I've seen, it's conflicting, that we've always had amazing mobility in America. But a Pew study, of all people, found that lots of people who were in the bottom quarter ended up in the top, and people in the top end up in the bottom.
Sure. It's about 44% of the people in the bottom fifth get out of that quintile within the next 6 years, and the people in the top fifth, about 34% fall. That's lower than it was, and that's what we should worry about.
One of the points I think we need to make is that the left loves to focus on the income gap. And I always ask people to think about this thought experiment. Let's say you have two job offers. Job offer A, you make $50,000 and your boss makes $55,000, just an income gap of 10%. Job offer B, you make $500,000 and your boss makes $1 million. And that greedy guy is making double what you are. Look at that 100% income.
But you're making $500,000.
But you're making $500,000. So let's focus on getting that bottom number up rather than what the gap is. And I think that the focus is really on the wrong thing. And Arthur's right. It needs to be about.
You ever have anyone say, "I'd rather have the $50,000 and my boss just make a little more"?
Some people focus on the envy aspect, but I think most people would rather have $500,000 rather than $50,000. And the left is just focused on the gap, and that's almost a religious icon for them.
Now, envy is actually a big deal that we have to focus on, because people who do feel envious, people who do riot, people who will take the $50,000, you know what the key thing about them is? They feel that they don't have mobility. They feel that they can't get ahead. People who think that they can get ahead even if there's a lot of inequity, they want a society in which they've got this kind of mobility. So the key thing that we have to do is protect the opportunity society and say inequality is perfectly okay. We worry about mobility.
Now, one person who changed the terms of the debate in a way that you describe is Charles Murray, when he wrote Losing Ground. I mean, welfare was just something that was always going to be there, and anybody who fought it was cruel.
He basically said that the problem with the welfare system is not that it was a colossal waste of money, which it was. It was that it was hurting the people it was supposed to help, and that was immoral. As soon as the moral claim was laid out there, the fuse was lit. And it took about, and all major policy reforms take at least 10 years. It took 12 years between the time that Charles Murray wrote Losing Ground in 1984 and when Bill Clinton signed the welfare reform legislation into law in 1996.
Well, it's exciting to hear maybe in 10 years we can turn this around. This is really the first time last few years that I've really heard politicians talking about the exploding government and it being a problem. We have a graph that shows the growth of federal spending since the beginning of the Republic. And the trend line is really ugly and unsustainable, but 10 years, we can turn this around?
There are a lot of people who are persuadable in this country. They're currently being persuaded by the side that makes the moral case, that says fairness means that we have to have the Buffett rule. Fairness means we have to take more away from the rich people.
That appeals to people.
And we have to say, okay, fine, you want to talk fairness? Fairness is not stealing from our kids and grandkids. Fairness means not paying bureaucrats more than private sector workers make. Fairness means not giving bailouts to auto corporations. I mean, that's basic
Fairness
stuff.
means going to the politicians with these signs and saying they can't.
Exactly
we
right.
Can't.
And congratulations on your book, by the way.
Why, thank you. On the book tour, people say to me, "Oh, you libertarians, you don't care about the poor. What would happen to them?" But it's interesting that even before the Depression, before any of these social programs existed, nobody in America was starving on the streets. Charities existed to help people, and mutual aid societies. There were 10, 20, 30,000 of them. They were racist, blacks helping blacks, Swedes helping Swedes, but they knew who needed help and who needed a kick in the rear. They were better at it than government. Now we're so much richer, charities like that would step in and really help poor people.
They could. There are two classes of people in America, effectively. People who believe they should give their own money away, and people who believe that we should give your money away.
And if we got rid of all the social programs, you say people wouldn't starve on the street?
Well, I believe that people probably wouldn't starve on the street, but I don't believe we should get rid of all social programs either. I think that simply what we should focus on is what Hayek, who is somebody that we both admire a lot, believed that we should have a safety
minimal
net.
safety
But
net.
the safety net is not about middle-class welfare. It's not about taking the risk out of life, and it's not talking about trying to lower inequality. That's not a safety net. That's what Paul Ryan calls a hammock.
And this is something else that government does these days. Rather than having a program that focuses on poor people with no resources or really need help, we now give things to everybody, like the prescription drug plan that President Bush, for example, who was also a big government guy, rather than say, let's do something for poor people who are 80 years old, 90 years old, can't take care of themselves. Instead, it's as soon as you turn 65, everybody gets drug benefits, even people who had insurance with drug benefits. You had drug benefits
Free
on top
stuff.
of drug benefits. Free stuff for all. I'd much rather prefer
for me, I
and
just
for
turned
you,
65.
Congratulations. So you get free stuff,
I
too.
get free stuff.
That's right.
But you talk about the moral case for capitalism. Why not say Hayek didn't go far enough? If we're saying that free individuals do it better, why have any government safety net? Why wouldn't we say charity will do it all better?
There's evidence that there are certain things that charity won't address adequately according to our values, according to our moral wishes. So, for example, the mentally ill. The mentally ill
You
typically
don't think rich people
have,
would start hospitals for the mentally ill?
What we found is that there's not evidence that they would be adequately covered. And you know what? That's actually what I want my taxes to go to. That, to me, having a mentally ill in the street is a public bad, and that's one of the things the government's supposed to do. It's not to make people more economically equal or to get rid of the risk out of life or to bail people out who are able-bodied. That's nuts. And that's actually what's leading us down this wrong road in the first place.